Chris Kofinas is the former chief of state for West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin and former communications director for the John Edwards presidential campaign. Ian Pryor is communications director for American Crossroads. That's a lot to say, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. Ian, let me start with you. There were so many tears last night. I'm not sure when I've ever seen that. There were even some chants of lock her up at Hillary Clinton's own convention last night. What did you make of it?
Well, I think what you're seeing here is the result of 5 years of the Democratic Party pandering to its far-left liberal base. And now that they've opened the Pandora's box of socialism, they're learning some very hard lessons, chief of which is that members of the Bernie Sanders revolution are not just going to line up behind Hillary Clinton, buy an I'm with her bumper sticker, and start singing Kumbaya. The bottom line is there are some serious divisions within this party, and it's going to be fascinating to figure out, or to see if they're able to figure out how to bridge that divide between now and November 8th.
Chris, Michelle Obama, her video was beautiful. I don't know if people know that was produced by movie phenomenon J.J. Abrams. She said a lot of things that were very inspirational, people were excited about. One thing she said, though, was she mentioned that she was worried about the toll that being the children's president, the president's children, would have on her kids, that toll. I wonder if that resonates with people who are, having trouble paying the rent.
Well, I think it resonates with anyone who cares not only about their children but all families. I think what's interesting about what happened last night, it's not about how you start a convention, about how you finish it, especially in terms of the first night. And whereas you had a Republican Party that from beginning to end was really racked with division, where some of the most prominent Republicans in the country not only failed to show up, continue to fail to endorse, what you saw is Bernie Sanders give a very clear endorsement of Secretary Clinton.
But Chris, let me stop you there, because you don't feel like the booing, that was a sign of division, and the tears and yelling at Elizabeth Warren, "We trusted you," again and again. To you, does that feel like unity or division when people are crying and booing and shouting, "We trusted you"?
I mean, here's what I would say is there's a lot of impassioned supporters of Bernie Sanders. But what you saw, I think, both in Sanders' speech, as well as Elizabeth Warren's speech, as well as Cory Booker's speech, and Michelle Obama's in particular, was a very strong call of unity that's going to resonate. And if you look at most of the polling, overwhelmingly Sanders supporters are going to support Secretary Clinton. I think what you're seeing on the other side is still not only amongst the establishment, but amongst moderate Republicans, moderate Republican women.
Well, hang on. We want to spend our time talking about the Democrats this week and make sure that we give them their as much time as they need this week. Ian, so Bill Clinton sitting in the audience, he's going to get up and speak. At the time when he left office, very popular. Now, the people specifically who are at this convention are looking back at his record and not loving his policies on incarceration and law enforcement, and also not loving his policies on trade. How do you think that impacts the conversation?
Absolutely. This is not Bill Clinton's Democratic Party anymore. This is the party of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, and that was made clear last night. And getting back to sort of the differences between the two conventions, if you go back to the convention in Cleveland, sure, you had some booing during the rules session, then you had booing of Ted Cruz for not supporting the nominee. Yesterday, you had booing of people for supporting Hillary Clinton, and then every time Hillary's name was mentioned, it was either boos or chants of lock her up. I'd go so far as to say that there were more boos of Hillary Clinton during one day in Philadelphia than there were in 4 days in Cleveland.
So, Chris, all this builds up to, on the final night, Hillary Clinton coming out and taking the stage. Like you said, you made a great point. There has been so much enthusiasm at this convention, so much passion. The one thing that she has lacked in this campaign has been passion and enthusiasm on her side. Do you think that transfers? I mean, how do you think you get that into that last night when she takes the stage?
I think you're going to see an incredible response by Democrats, obviously. But there's two audiences here. There's obviously the audience inside.
Yeah.
But the more important audience is the American people who are going to be watching this and their reactions. And I think what you're going to see Secretary Clinton do is not only speak to the folks, not only Sanders supporters, but more importantly the American people, those moderate Republican women, those moderates that are disaffected or worried about a Donald Trump presidency, those mothers and fathers that are concerned about the impact that his offensive and racist rhetoric is going to have on children. She's going to speak to that, I think, in a very impassioned way. And that is going to be the most significant thing. At the end of the day, listen, these days are all important, but the thing that voters remember are the last two speeches. It's going to be Trump's speech and Hillary's speech. That's going to be the contrast.
Ian, do you agree with that?
Well, yeah, let's talk about what people at home are thinking, right? In the past 11 days, there have been 5 terrorist attacks in Europe, right? Terrorism is the #1 concern among voters in this country. Yet there were 61 speeches yesterday, not one mention of terrorism or ISIS. I guess that means that Democrats aren't that particularly concerned with that issue, but voters at home are.
Okay, to be fair, they say they're getting to that wasn't the theme of last night, and we certainly will keep an eye on it and see if they do or not.
And in fairness, it wasn't the...
It wasn't the theme. We understand. We got to go. Gentlemen, thanks to both of you.
Yeah.
John.
All right, so we are just...